All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for your time and attention today, and thank you to our speakers on our panel today. We're going to be talking about beyond the NFT JPEG. So I think I'd like to kick off and have each of the panelists kind of introduce themselves and give a little bit of context on how you fit into the world of NFT. And we'll start with Jake.
Awesome, thanks, Arry. And thanks for everyone for coming this morning, and big shout out to Mark and Lennox for helping put on this event. So just wanted to say that firstly. My name's Jake. I'm from a company called Mogul Productions. So basically, we have a platform that works on the convergence between the film industry and the world of blockchain and NFTs. So basically, we get independent filmmakers through the platform, and then we present their IP to our community, and our community then has the option to purchase NFTs attached to that IP that drives financing for filmmakers. So the film industry has historically been a huge issue getting access to funds. So this is a way to kind of democratize the industry to put more power back into both fans, but also the filmmakers.
Fascinating. Lennox?
Hey everyone, Lennox, co-founder, NFT Seattle, co-founder of Satoshi's Index. And I also do some things over at Starbucks Corporate. That's my day jobby job. But how I ended up in NFTs, that's quite the story. But and I'll probably share plenty of times later on today. But I launched a project, Satoshi's Index. We have a booth or a table downstairs. Check it out. Talk to my co-founder Kevin. He's down there. He'll give you the spiel. But also just dove right in last year. Started collecting and started investing in different projects. Got into crypto 2017 when I started trading Ethereum. So it's just been this wild ride of really exploring everything the blockchain has to offer. So excited to be up here with this amazing panel of people.
Thank you, Lennox. Jessica?
I just got to say first, I am so impressed with the turnout for an early morning session. You can tell this is the city of coffee. My name is Jessica Greenwalt. I am a creative director over at Vayner3 and also co-founder for a blockchain-based game company called Unum that I'm excited to launch at the end of this year. At Vayner, I work on a lot of the Web3 programs for Fortune 500 companies that come to us and say like, hey, we want to be in the Web3 space. We don't entirely know what that means exactly, but we understand that that's where everything is going. Please help us and tell us what to do. So I tell them what to do.
Thank you, Jessica. And Jonathan, our local Seattle socialite. Everyone knows you here, I think.
Thanks. We host a lot of blockchain events here, so thank you, Arry. Hey, everybody. My name is Jonathan G. Blanco. I am the founder of TF Labs and of Niftmint. I'm a two-time Web3 commerce founder. In 2017, really got the bug for cryptocurrency, and we were developing a loyalty product with Web3 and crypto. And actually, when how I got into NFTs or interested in NFTs was when CryptoKitties came out in 2017. I started thinking that an NFT would be an interesting representation for loyalty on a human level, actually. So that's a whole different conversation. But at Niftmint, what we've been doing is working with brands, retailers, organizations who are looking to implement NFTs and sell them as any other product. We handle all the commerce infrastructure for that. And then with TF Labs, we help them with agency services to make happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Well, related to the panel before, talking about community, community is really, really important here, and it's been going on for quite some time. And part of that community process is actually trading notes on definitions and standards and regulations, because all of that is in flux today. And so I'd like to kick off the panel with, tell us about utility. How do you define utility in NFTs? And I'll throw it up to who wants to take it up, and then you can get a commentary. Jake?
Oh yeah, I'll jump first. But so I guess it's a pretty loaded question. But I guess utility for me is something that provides access, experience. That could be physical or virtual. But I can give you a couple of examples with kind of what I'm working on within the film industry and how we're kind of applying that beyond kind of the JPEG. So Firstly, I want to say like that is important because digital identity is a huge thing and JPEGs have their place, but where it gets interesting is kind of what lies beneath that. So to give you some context, when we work with the filmmakers in the film industry, we pretty much work from all the way from the development stage all the way through to distribution. So there's 5 different phases of a life cycle of a film, from development, pre-production, production, post, and then distribution. So for someone who gets in early to support a film from the ground up and help finance that, they can get, for example, things like FaceTime with the cast and crew. You can go to red carpet premieres. You can get physical props from on set. You can actually go to like cast and crew dinners. You can get all kinds of things that are attached to that whole process, and it builds community and it provides them experiences they wouldn't previously have access to, both virtual and physical. So that's just kind of a few examples, but it ultimately depends on the industry and product that you're trying to put out there. But yeah, I'll pass it on to whoever's next.
Anyone else? Oh, Lennox?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. So some context, my background is in software engineering. So I've been using technology to solve problems for a really long time. So when I think of utility, I really have to kind of backtrack and go back to the actual technology itself, because technology serves very specific purposes. So utility isn't even inherently specific to NFTs or Web3. Utility is something that transcends Web3. Utility is just something that technology does. So when I think of utility within the context of Web3 and NFTs, it's like, okay, well, what does this technology do for us that we couldn't do before as a community? And with NFTs, man, it's exciting because we are in a place where we've seen like the very surface level utility, which is, you know, like the use cases in art and that kind of stuff. But really, when you go back to the technology, the blockchain, the smart contracts, it's on top of that you start to see all kinds of use cases that we didn't have before. So for me, when I think of utility within Web3 and NFTs, I'm thinking about what can this tech do for businesses, for artists, for musicians, for just regular people that we didn't have like before this existed. So really just that's how I define utility within this space.
So I'm going to jump in there. So I get utility. Maybe, Jessica, you can help with some of your favorite use cases that talk about utility in the way that's been described or adding to it.
I'm partial to Web3 programs or NFTs or tokens that get you access to real life experiences. It's no secret that I'm not the biggest fan of the metaverse as it's currently implemented or described right now. I understand it's going to be great. I got that. But if I have to sit through one more metaverse-based party where I don't get any free drinks and I can't actually hang out with people in real life, I'm not going, basically. But there are a lot of really cool Web3 token-gated clubs that get you access to things that really are hard to get into. My favorite example right now is Divin. It's this over-the-top wine club that gets you culinary experiences that would be hard for anyone in the world to get. But the thing that gets me really excited about them is actually their technology. They have these, what they call soul-bound experience tokens, so that once they're gifted to you, you can't transfer them to anyone else. You can't sell them. It's proof that you really had this extremely rare or exclusive experience. And then brands can build upon that and use that to see like who are their diehard fans who are actually going out to do these events and reward them.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd add to what has been said here is totally agree on all the utility elements and so forth, but I think one thing that gets forgotten when it comes to utility is utility stems from the organization that is producing or providing the NFT, right? And so part of the issues that have happened, which is similar to what we saw in ICO, is you have someone saying, this is all the future value that I'm gonna give to you once you buy my little magical picture or my magical internet money, and then we're all gonna have this amazing time. I think that's problematic for a host of reasons, but that's why I actually think it's really interesting for brands in particular to get involved with Web3 and with NFTs because they already have the embedded, ingrained community. I'm wearing Jordans right now. I see that you're wearing Jordans right now. We're probably going to talk about Jordans later, right? We're part of the Jordan community and we don't have a token necessarily just yet. So imagine the power of Nike, who is very much involved with Web3 and NFTs, coming at it from that perspective. We're talking about JPEGs and more than a JPEG. I want to put something out here to everybody. Let's just pretend that NFTs are no more than just a better JPEG. Because at the end of the day, what an NFT is a digital wrapper for digital inventory, meaning it's a programmable content file. So if the worst thing that NFTs ever amount to be is a better JPEG or a better PNG that's now programmable and unlocks access to all these things, I think that's actually a pretty good experience for brands overall. All that to say, I think there's still value along the other aspects that people hype up as well.
Very educational. Thank you for sharing, Jonathan. I'm going to put on my professor hat. So one of the great things about blockchain is that you can put an economic institution and embed it into the protocol, right? And one of the great uses for anything blockchain or anything in this air quote Web3 space is to amplify a network effect already in place. So why use an NFT on a blockchain? Why don't you use something else? Can you please help explain? Who wants to start?
Yeah, sure. It's actually it's a very interesting question, and to be honest, like there's not always a need for blockchain, and I think it depends on the specific product, or it depends on the industry, or it depends on ultimately on the problem that you're trying to solve. So I can only speak for what I'm doing, but for example, like in films, there's huge issues with transparency, with financial production budgets. So now that everything's kind of going on chain, that's available for anyone to get access to. So that's really important. The other thing is the concept of royalties. So that for creators in particular has been a paradigm shift for them to get perpetual revenue as a creative that they didn't previously have access to. So that is also really important. So I'd say the two main things for me would be the transparency of on-chain activity and also kind of built-in royalties to enable creators to get more what they're worth, I think, throughout their careers.
I think a big part of why you'd use an NFT, especially for like a membership club, for example, like these in real life experiences, is under normal circumstances right now, if you're a member of a club or organization, you're paying a recurring fee to get access to that club. And then when you stop paying that fee, you stop getting access to that club. And that's it. You don't have this interest and sense of ownership that will make you want to improve the brand image of that club or improve the club in general. But if you actually own your membership in the form of an NFT, which we see a lot of Web3 communities doing, you pay upfront for essentially lifetime membership or membership as long as you're holding the token. And as the brand equity of that club increases, as the demand to be in that club increases, the value of your membership increases. So you are incentivized to help improve that club. And then when it's no longer relevant to you, you actually get to sell that membership to someone else who wants it. It's a completely different model than memberships now. It gets you as a member invested in the overall health and longevity of the organization.
And I'll just jump in real quick because I love this question. I have these conversations quite a bit. NFTs are not the solution for everything. Innovation for the sake of innovation is not good. So I think we can all agree. But we are in that frothy phase of this market where we're going to try throw NFTs at everything. That will pass. But I think kind of going back to what Jake was saying, going back to the actual use cases and then kind of building from there. I'll take one use case that we used. We used this token, this NFT, to gatekeep access into a piece of software or a software ecosystem, right? Can you use other things to do the same thing? Probably, but the transparency of the blockchain and all these other benefits made it just the most foolproof way to kind of circumvent things like piracy that have plagued the software as a service space. And the last thing I'll mention is this idea of royalties, because that is a double whammy. As the issuer of a piece of software, if you have an NFT attached to that, people are reselling it on the secondary market. Now all of a sudden you have another revenue stream you didn't have before for when you sell, for when people sell or trade that token that's attached to your software. So that, and then also for the people themselves that are, using the software, they're tired of it, or for whatever reason it no longer serves their needs and they choose to like sell it to someone else, you can recoup your initial investment, which is something we don't really have today in the software as a service space. Jonathan.
Yeah, just to double down on what I was saying before, I think that kind of talks on this is, we're talking about the royalties and these sorts of things. And what we're really talking about is, again, a programmable content file. So I think a lot of times when we think about NFTs, we think about like there's this cool picture, and this cool picture gives me this stuff. When actually it's kind of the opposite if you think about it, is that you get this stuff or you get this experience, or more than that, it's the metadata or what's programmed into the actual code base, and then you have a digital representation of what that means, which is a Bored Ape or an image of a cat or whatever that be overall. So if we come at it from that point of view, then that is what makes NFTs incredibly interesting long-term. We'll have brands that come up to us and was like, we want to create a decentralized, democratized in the metaverse and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great, like this is, and we want to have a DAO too. It's like, oh, great, this is what that would actually mean for you. It's like, oh, no, we don't want to do that. We just want to sell stuff. Cool. Well, if in some hypothetical future, and to your point about the metaverse, not being ready, I'm bullish on the metaverse in a long time from now, not right now. But what's great about an NFT is the fact that 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 100 years from now, theoretically, you can program that NFT into the metaverse of that future, because again, you're calling into a blockchain that is indisputable and is there essentially forever. That's why we're talking about blockchain. And you're calling into, hey, this token ID is what gets access to this thing. So again, the programmable aspects of it is why this is very interesting, as opposed to just a random JPEG that we can all just copy, paste, and put wherever we want.
Side question, which blockchain or distributed ledger are we betting on right now?
Polygon.
Polygon?
I'm saying one that doesn't exist yet. I think
One that doesn't exist yet?
One that does not exist yet, yeah. I think that most of the blockchains that exist today, not named Bitcoin, really try to overstate like these decentralized, democratized aspect of what they do, when really they're, kind of trying to make their own ecosystem better and create more revenue for their ecosystem. And so that's why personally I'm very much a fan of Bitcoin in that context, but I think there's a need still for another blockchain to come up that will either think more in a Bitcoin context for this way, or just flat out be like, hey, we are the consumer blockchain, and we are here to create revenue for ourselves, and we are here to get a percentage of et cetera, and just be upfront with it.
I got to give a shout out to Stacks, which is bringing smart contracts to Bitcoin. So probably something you'd be into if you're not already. But in my work, I propose the blockchain that is the most relevant or optimal for the program that we're designing for that client. So I want to say I'm like chain agnostic. Obviously, I'm a fan of Stacks, but I'm not going to just try and like shoehorn them into every project that I'm working on. We do work with Polygon. We do work with Ethereum. It will probably end up working with Flow.
Yeah, and even though I said the one, again, if you're telling me to bet on one, the one that doesn't exist yet, we work with Stacks, Harmony, Polygon, Ethereum. We make it the brand's decision because we think it's a marketing decision as to why you would choose a blockchain.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely agree with Lennox. I think Polygon's getting some huge traction. For me, I'm personally agnostic, and I think things are fluid and they evolve. Obviously, Ethereum has a massive network effect, but that doesn't always mean much. You can sort of see platforms have always been continually debased as time goes on. So I think you just got to remain fluid and kind of keep your eye out on what serves problems in the most efficient way.
Maybe the future will be lots and lots of chains, lots of private distributed ledger chains hooking up to the one and only blockchain. Dun, dun, dun. All right, well then. So royalties, do we actually have royalties happening today? If not, how long until we get there? Or what use case will bring the mass late adopters into the fold here?
Yeah, sure. So I guess what use cases will bring people to use NFTs and that kind of thing. So I think firstly, proof of attendance NFTs are really cool. There's not necessarily a ton of utility attached, but what I think it does, it's an easy, it reduces the friction and barrier to entry for people to actually get exposed to this technology and kind of what it's all about, and there's no cost associated. So for a lot of people, I know the guys are doing one for this event, so if you're going to a memorable event or experience and you have an NFT attached to that, like that's pretty cool. And off the back of that, I think ultimately industries that have like a lot of underlying commerce, like could even be airline ticketing. I see they're doing stuff like that, music concerts, events, going to the movies. Like there's whole different kind of elements of commerce. But I think ultimately you want to try and integrate it where there's already a lot of revenue and people are familiar with certain purchasing activities, because if there is too many layers or steps, then you kind of lose people, especially at this kind of point in the race.
And I'll jump in real quick. And before I answer, quick disclaimer, I do not speak on behalf of this company. This is just a casual observer. But I really think it's cool to see what Starbucks is doing, because they've been very intentional about approaching the marketplace with this kind of almost like anti-NFT verbiage, where it's like, it's a digital collectible and all this stuff. You don't need crypto, you don't need a wallet. And you're talking about a giant multinational brand with 25 million loyal participants.
27.4 actually, but go. No, just kidding.
Thank you, Jonathan. 27.4 million people that are already bought in. They already drank the Kool-Aid, right? And now with this Starbucks Odyssey, that stands to be probably one of the largest onboarding opportunities into Web3. So for me, my answer to that question would be anything that lowers the barrier to entry so low that your grandma could participate without knowing that she's participating in Web3.
Can I just touch on one last, I didn't mean to cut you off, but just so, one thing to put everything into perspective too. So 27.4 million loyalty members. As of last count in March, there's 30 million MetaMask users. So you want to tell Starbucks to say, hey, Starbucks, you should avoid your consumer audience and you should go for a crypto audience and found a niche of your customer base. Or how about you just double down on your existing customer base and bring the Web3 experience to that. I'm a big fan of it, also because that's kind of our philosophy that we're doing for all brands, is allowing brands to do that overall. But at the end of the day, it's the brands or companies or organizations that really focus on their customer and then adjacent, and then everything else will fall into that.
You asked what needs to happen for mass adoption, right? I don't actually think it's going to be up to the consumer. They're going to end up utilizing this technology whether they know it or not. And the brands that we're working with, they're massive, and Starbucks is a great example. Their loyalty programs, their membership programs, they're just going to start using this technology. You won't even have to think about it anymore. The same way you don't think about using the internet. You don't have a whole lot of people boycotting the use of the internet for whatever application a program is running on. So I don't think there's anything we have to do to appeal to the general public.
Well, and to the internet point, so Facebook and YouTube were what took the internet to 1 billion users. I believe NFTs via brands is what's going to take us to 1 billion users.
How, Jonathan? Can you give me an example? What will this look like in
From a brand
5
context?
years,
No,
10
I think
years?
just exactly what Jessica said is that, the beauty, who here used hypertext transfer protocol this morning or sometime in the last couple days? Okay? Every one of you did, because you use HTTP on your phones or wherever that's where you put the domain, okay? So it's going to be the same thing on an NFT context, just like Jessica is saying here, is that it's really all about, and in the Starbucks context, is you're going to be experiencing this within that environment that you're in already. Brands, most customers here, most of us here, we have affinity to the things that we like based off of its community, its organization, etc. And so we'll buy things from that brand because we like them, right? We're not necessarily buying it because it's democratizing access to whatever we want. We're buying it because we want to experience them. So I think that equates. And then I think at the most basic level is, I bet every one of you have something on your bookshelf that the rest of us would think is silly, but it means something to you? Because I know I do, right? And why does that not translate into the digital world? We'll have digital stuff the same way that we have physical stuff.
I was thinking, like, I walk into a bar, you know, pretend I'm 20, this is 20 years ago, and I go, boop. Bartender knows I'm over 21. They know that I like to order one of these 3 drinks, and they go A, B, or C, and I go C, grab my cocktail, go into a booth by myself, and maybe this is the metaverse experience. Like, I start having a drink with my friends. We all meet all over the world, and we have a drink in a bar, literally, but, you know, in my own solo booth. Like, can someone else tell me an experience that it might look like? You hate the metaverse today, so what is it going to be like in Cheska?
I will be all about the metaverse when the experience of it, whatever it ultimately ends up being like, is an improvement upon this reality. Or if it can provide something to my senses that this physical world cannot deliver to me. So narratively, the story of like going into my own solo booth and like buying myself a drink and then dialing my friends in, it sounds like a
sad.
nightmare. That sounds like, I don't know, that sounds like remote work right now. And that's the last thing I want to do after working. So ideally, if we're going in that direction, it would be like a fully immersive experience where they could trigger the neurons in my brain to fire so that my senses felt like I was actually in the experience and I could do things that I can't do in this world.
If you
Ready
think
Player
about
One, sorry, Ready Player One?
And that's what Meta is building, right? And I know the opinions are split on this one, but Zuckerberg and his crew over there, that is the metaverse they envision, where you put on, well, right now the Oculuses are super big and heavy, so they're gonna have to figure the hardware out. But they are envisioning that world that you described where geography ceases to be a barrier. Like, you put on your Oculus and you can have a cocktail with your friend that's across the world. I think there's value in stuff like that, but until the underlying tech itself actually matures, we won't really grasp the fullness of that. So that's my personal take on it, on the metaverse.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Jessica was saying, how I think from a technological standpoint, we are still very early in having that fully immersive experience, but there's no doubt the way things are heading with everyone spending more and more time online, like with that Zoom, or you've got your virtual doctor's appointments, or there's a whole plethora of different industries that are pivoting to have more of an online presence. And so I think as we grow and brands like that Jessica and Jonathan are working with are coming into the space, there's going to be more and more of those virtual experiences. And even though I think ultimately, like, seeing everyone in real life is the best thing, but for someone who lives on the other side of the world that can't get to this, they can still experience something in a really cool, immersive way. So I think that's important, but I definitely am of the agreement that we are, like, probably at least a few years out from the technology development.
All right, so the metaverse is catching up. So if you're a big brand, what should you be thinking about if you haven't started thinking about this space and how to get into NFTs and Web3? Like, how do you not get left behind?
I think big brands should be building their own internal Web3 divisions if they're not already.
Yes, 100%. The brands that avoided e-commerce got left behind. The brands that avoided social got left behind. The brands that avoided mobile got left behind. It's going to happen with Web3. That doesn't mean that you have to start selling NFTs today, but you really need to be thinking about it. One thing that's pretty encouraging is that pretty much every major brand has at least one individual that's at least thinking about this. But we're at the phase now where thinking about this is not enough. Like, you have to start strategizing about this overall. But at its most basic level is, what would your actual core customers want from you? And that's where you start. And then you bring Web3 to the core customer, as opposed to starting at focusing a heavy Web3 experience and hoping that your customer goes to that.
Who are the most important people to have on this internal team you speak of?
I think this is a combination of marketing and software development. I would say perhaps and then I think there is actually a revenue aspect to this, right? Is that marketing revenue and software development. And knowing that you're likely going to have to partner with someone like Vayner or someone like TF Labs, and being okay with that, because you'd probably partnered with someone for your social strategy when it first came out. You probably partnered someone with your e-commerce strategy. In fact, I guarantee you did, because a lot of brands still partner with e-commerce agencies and so forth.
And to the point about your social strategy, you still have marketing agencies handling that too. But as far as your internal team, we help set companies up with getting their legal, financial involved in addition to marketing, because they end up being the major bottlenecks, or the people who ultimately end up crushing a program if they weren't involved at the very beginning.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just wanted to kind of touch on the example of like social media, where probably 10 years ago there was only a level of kind of progressive companies who are actually leveraging that to like amplify their marketing, build community, drive revenue, stuff like that, right? Where initially it just started as posting with a few of your friends while you're at school. And then now you look around and every company in the world has at least a social media manager, and they use that to drive revenue and build communities, right? So that's kind of where we are with NFTs, is that we're not quite there yet, but it'll become the norm where you'll have NFT teams in-house that'll be using community building, revenue driving, marketing activities. And I think in terms of brands entering the space, like obviously these guys are doing this every day, but even as something as simple as like taking your top 1% of customers that have been loyal to you for 10 years and they're buying your products, and then kind of giving them a complimentary NFT that kind of brings them to cool, really immersive and kind of gated experiences that you're basically just rewarding them for being a customer anyway, but it gets them using the technology and it makes them familiar with what's going on.
Quick question, how much time do I have left?
Let's keep it running.
All right, I'll keep going and going. 3 minutes? Okay. Well then, with 3 minutes, for the entrepreneur, the investor, the innovator, or just the enthusiast, could you give each one of these people your best words of advice? You can pick one or pick all four.
I'll jump in with a quick general word. Web3 is a creator's economy. You're rewarded for doing and building. So go out there and experiment. MVPs, proof of concepts, have never been easier. So whether you're a ginormous corporation, an indie artist, or whoever you are, a startup founder, I think you really just have to see this opportunity for what it is. And it's an opportunity to experiment and just really throw something into the marketplace. That's the only way to really gain traction.
I'm just going to give you a dose of reality here. It's harder than it looks. I get a lot of people messaging me on social being like, you have a dream job, you work in NFTs and Web3, and everyone's making a shit ton of money. I work around the clock and I don't sleep, and the space keeps changing. There's no way I can keep up with this. It's insane. We have like full-on teams of people who are constantly researching what's going on. We're all workaholics. I'm just giving you that kind of context there before you think like, oh, this is such easy money and it's like a party all day, every day. It is so much fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's a ton of fun and you get to be on the cutting edge of everything that's happening. Just have a little bit of realistic expectations that if you want to stay on top of what's happening in this rapidly changing space, it is moving faster than any other industry I have ever been involved in my entire life.
I'll close with speaking to the investor. As an investor, you're supposed to be looking to the future and making bets on who's going to be making that, future bigger, brighter, better, right? So if you do not have a Web3 strategy within your own firm, you are doing a disservice to your own LPs as a result of that, because you're not looking. It doesn't mean you have to go invest in a protocol tomorrow or like the most Web3, but you really need to start having a strategy and a solution here overall, because the best founders in the world, even if they're Web2 founders, are moving into Web3 because it's a more challenging opportunity overall. So really just start thinking about that. I always laugh when I meet investors who are like, oh, I'm not bought into this Web3 space yet. And it's like, oh, cool. Did you say the same thing about every other major technological innovation? Good luck on this next round.
Yeah, for sure. It's also just in terms of like, users and investors and just the everyday person that's actually getting involved, whether that's you're a flipper or you're trying to get access to a really unique experience. I just would always encourage people to make sure education is by far the most important thing for people entering, because you could sort of see over the last year there were so many people that got wrecked because it's like, oh, we're building a game. It's like, do you know how long it takes to build a game? Like, so stuff like that, I think people just have to do their research, know who the teams are behind certain products, look at the roadmap, like who's involved, and just kind of don't rush into things, because there is that kind of FOMO culture, but ultimately if you're in it for the right reasons and you do diligence, then you'll end up being okay most of the time.
To build on that, yes, I do know how long it takes to build a game. Please be nice to founders. I see a lot of people like crapping on them in Twitter all the time, like, oh, you didn't deliver this, or like, you didn't give me this, I don't know, hoodie for buying your NFT. Like, chill. They're working pretty hard, and it is a lot of hard work to deliver on the things that people are demanding from them.
Well, thank you everyone for being with us today. I'm gonna put the professor hat on again. Lots of innovation in the space, lots of changes, lots of new stuff. We're here in community today, so like make friends with people here today so that before you jump into anything or do anything too quickly, too fast, too much money, check with someone else first. And that's why we're here today. Build community, make relationships, and then we'll all grow from there. Thank you.